today we're going to discuss, and again, this is an interactive forum. Um, I don't want to just lecture you guys. I've been in presentations before where someone was just lecturing, and to say the least, I didn't care for it that much. So we're talking about a school attendance. Attendance matters. We're going to delve into matters that concern chronic absenteeism and how chronic absenteeism leads to truancy. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about myself. My name is AJ Austin. I'm a school social worker. I've been with the district for 20 years as a school social worker, and so I've been in a number of different areas as it relates to um, providing students with the best possible platform to learn and grow. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our PowerPoint. On a scale from 0 to 10, can you guys kind of share out as far as how you feel like you're doing with your students' attendance? 0 being very happy, while 10 is you're a little bit disappointed. 5 is somewhere in the middle, that you can do better. How would you guys say you're doing?
Somebody in the chat said they feel like they're at a 2.
At a 2? Okay, perfect, outstanding. Thank you, Miss Hill. Thank you, Miss Hill. That's outstanding. Very good. So I'm assuming that most people, like I say, of course, you guys are here. You want to learn more about attendance. So I'm almost sure that you guys are pretty pleased with how you're getting your students to school. And we're going to learn more about attendance. Um, and again, how chronic absenteeism can lead, unfortunately, to truancy. All right. First and foremost, I want to let you guys know that there is a way that you can monitor your child's attendance through the Focus portal. Um, and this is basically when you log into Focus. Um, there's a preferences section, and that's specifically if you're not receiving automated phone calls regarding your child's absences. You may need to update your preferences or contact information in Focus, and that's how you do it. You go to preferences and you're able to update your information. So if you're not getting those automated phone calls, if you take your student to the doctor and you didn't get a call indicating that you were absent, or that your child was absent, then that's probably why. Here's another section in Focus where it specifically highlights absences. You can check in this particular region of Focus unexcused absences, tardies, as well as excused absences. So you can keep up with all of the information as it relates to your students' attendance through Focus. Okay. Okay. Now this is a big one.
AJ,
Most. Hey.
correct me. Somebody asked in the chat, sorry.
No, that's
When
okay.
is the info updated? Is it daily? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think teachers um, input the attendance daily or each period, and then it shows pretty much instantly on Focus. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I'm gonna go back real quick. I'm gonna be honest. I think the best way to update information as it relates to your information, I'm gonna get to that question as well. But the best way to update your information um, in Focus is through the blue card at the school. So if you really want to update your information and make sure you're getting everything that's coming down the pipe from your child's school, make sure that blue card has all of the updated information. Um, so specifically as it relates to attendances, so absences, unexcused, and excused, it's imperative that teachers they're taking attendance daily. I know they're busy, but I have run into situations to where nobody's perfect. So teachers should be taking attendance accurately every day, and it should be updated and focused daily. At this section here, it should be daily. These absences, unexcused and excused, should be updated. I hope I answered your question. Um, So this is a biggie. There is no more Duval homeroom. So most all really students are tasked with being in brick and mortar. Right now, of course, there is a mask mandate, and we are tasked with um, with our kids being in school every day on time with wearing wearing masks unless there is a there's an opt-out option to the mask due to a medical concern. Okay, so no more Duval homeroom. As it relates to chronic absenteeism and truancy, why is it important to have our students in school? There's evidence. There's evidence-based research that indicates that students who are not in school often have, or the student. I'm sorry, the students who are in school regularly on time. They have a positive attendance pattern. They often have better outcomes, which is not surprising. These better outcomes are in multiple areas. They include post-secondary education, lifetime earnings, and employment, as well as civic engagement. So, being in school every day on time better positions our students to have future success. So, if for any other reason you want to get them in the habit of being in school to position them for future success. At this time, I want you guys to place in the chat, if you can, um, what is your perspective? What is your overall outlook as it relates to school attendance? Some people have negative views of school attendance because they themselves did not have a good experience when they were in school. Um, so I want you to briefly, in a couple of words or a sentence, maybe, what is your overall outlook or perspective of school? Because I'll tell you how you view school is how your child is going to ultimately visualize or view school. And if you want to, you can actually share out. You can talk. You can take yourselves off mute and tell me what's your overall perspective, outlook on school. Um, I'm not here to judge. Some people may have a different outlook as it relates to school, their philosophical view. They may not think that school is important. Okay, Ms. Hill says, I think school is very important. Education is highly valued in our family. Very good. That's important. That's good. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share out? The fact that education is valued and is highly important within the family, that socialization, that overall perspective is going to feed into your child's core beliefs as to how he or she is going to view school as well. Also, what's important is for us to understand the views of other individuals, to empathize and realize that oftentimes students, they're not in school because of social and environmental barriers. So what ultimately prevents parents from getting their students to school? So if you guys could again put in the chat or share out, what are some other points of views that other families or parents may have as it relates to school, especially as it relates to social and environmental barriers that they may face in getting their children to school on a regular basis? I think one thing that prevents kids from getting to school is having, absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Hill, I appreciate your participation and your input. That's absolutely true. One of the key barriers is transportation. Um, there may not be a bus, or parents may not actually understand how to access a bus to get transportation for their student to get to school. Exactly. If they're not waking up on time to catch the bus to get to school, they may not have, be in a transitional living situation to where they don't have an adequate or stable residence. Um, it could be a multitude of things that ultimately prevent parents from getting their students to school. But absolutely, Miss Hill, you hit the nail on the head. Transportation is key. Um, but think about it. If a child is focused, or a parent or a family is focused on housing, having a nighttime dwelling, do you think school would be that significant? Absolutely not. So um, it's often important to recognize the fact that there are some barriers, social and environmental barriers, that prohibit families from getting their students to school. And sometimes the barriers, as we're going to talk about um, later on in the presentation, it deals more so with a belief system. Maybe again, the parent didn't have a positive experience in school, and that transfers to the school to the student. And I like to refer to those as transgenerational beliefs, like a transgenerational belief system that the parent may have as it relates to school and education. And so here we're going to talk about it. Some of the most common responses from students are, so we have our myths, aversions, and barriers. Uh, in the myths, we have absences don't matter in elementary school. And that could be the furthest thing away from the truth. If anything, our students need a strong foundation. The sooner you put your student in school, the better. And I mean that's including preschool, daycare. the sooner we can get them to in a social learning environment to where they have to adapt to norms and cultures and rituals and routines, the better. So that's definitely a myth. Absences only matter if they're consecutive. Again, that's a myth, because what ultimately ends up happening is an absent this month, two absences next month, it'll ultimately build up to chronic absenteeism, because it only takes 18 absences to really equate to truancy or chronic absenteeism. So 18 absences throughout the course of a school year equals chronic absenteeism. Absences only matter if they're unexcused. How many think that that's true? And it is true to the extent to where uh, you're not going to get counted for that particular day as being absent, but your student is still missing instruction. So although you're not going to be counted, as the child is not going to be I don't want to say penalized, although they're not going to that absent isn't going to count against them. You can have 10 unexcused absences. That's going to ultimately equate to your student not receiving the academic instruction that they need. So whether the absences are from excused absences or unexcused absences, the lack of instruction is what they're missing. So absences are absences, unexcused are excused. It's important that our children are in school. Aversions. So oftentimes these are avoidances. How what aversions we have as it relates to school attendance. Some of the kids often say, "My mom didn't like school either." This goes back to the transgenerational belief, a manufactured thought that parents often have based on their experience, and it ultimately feeds into the socialization of the child. Um, Another thought is school is too hard. You know, so again, students pick that mindset set up that it's too hard. But again, if they can have success in school, small successes, they can understand that they have a sense of self accomplishment, sense of self worth, and that they can overcome anything in school if they have the proper tools to overcome barriers. School is boring. Um, Again, this is another belief that needs to be eradicated. I'm always in trouble. A couple of things I want to focus on real quick, and I'm going to move on shortly. School is too hard, and I'm always in trouble. When I used to talk about attendance, I would talk about the three A's: academics, attitude, and attendance. All right. Um, when you look at school is too hard, you're looking at academics. If something is too hard for your student, you have to, of course, the parent has to step in, talk to the teacher, identify what's going on, because that's a mental block that is going to it's going to feed into school avoidance, work avoidance. It's too hard, I can't do it. So we have to make sure that our students have the proper accommodations to get the work done. And I'm always in trouble, which again, that's so true. Miss Hill, I see where you put bullying. That bullying to me is it's an actual barrier. Bullying is an actual barrier. Uh, it's something that the threat of violence or the threat that you're going to be harmed is something real, and that also should be addressed, and that probably feeds into a great deal of truancy, kids not wanting to come to school. So that's a very important topic, bullying. But I'm always in trouble. So again, another key thing with school is that we can address behavioral needs. School isn't just for academics, it's about social and emotional development. So if you're a student saying I'm always in trouble, let's identify what's causing him or her to feel like they're always in trouble. Let's address the need, and let's allow them to be able to develop the social skills necessary to mitigate whatever problem they're having, so they won't feel like they're always in trouble. But if they're not in school, we can't address that need. Barriers. These are actual barriers. These are real barriers that ultimately prohibit students from being in school. And I think we addressed one earlier, which is transportation. I don't have transportation. I don't have access to the things I need. What are some of the things I need? Students need to have felt safety. They need to have felt trust, felt security. I don't know if anyone has heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but if they don't have the essential things in life, they're not going to be present in school. What I mean by that, they may be there physically, but mentally and emotionally, they're not going to be there. In essence, what I mean by that, if your child isn't getting a good night's rest in school, if they're not having food, if they're not being properly nourished, then they're not going to be in the best position to learn. So they have to have access to all of the things they need to be successful in school. I don't have a safe path to school. All right. And again, that could be a safe path could be physical or it could be philosophical. What does it mean by a safe path to school? I don't have anyone encouraging me. I don't have anyone motivating me. I don't have, so parents or guardians, whoever is there, they need to support our students. At the same time, if your child is walking to school, make sure they walk with a group of students that are going to help them get to where they need to go. Uh-oh. All right. This is back to the question in regards to whether or not um, chronic absenteeism can be gradual and difficult to notice, whether or not unexcused absences matter. Or really not unexcused absences, it's just sporadic absences. So if you look at the different the calendar here, you can see the different months have just a few days where they miss, but again, chronic absenteeism is 18 absences, which is 10% of the school year. So two days here in September, 2 in October, 3 4 days here, that's going to add up to a lot of instruction missed and ultimately chronic absenteeism. Research shows that chronic absences as early as kindergarten and first grade can affect reading proficiency in third grade. Okay, and so if you look at our student, it says absences don't matter in elementary. And again, we're going to address the fact that if anything, our students need a strong foundation. The sooner you engage your students in learning, the better. So, excuse me. So, again, third grade is a significant grade. Uh, Standardized tests are being executed in the third grade. So third grade is big, but it starts before the third grade. It starts pre-K, kindergarten. The sooner we get our students immersed in education, the better. So how can you help your child overcome aversion to school? And again, aversion is another word for avoidance, work avoidance, school avoidance. In my opinion, the best way to overcome aversion to school for your student is to be the example you want your child to be. Speak positive. Tell them they can do it. They can, there isn't anything too hard for them. So here you see our students saying, "My mom didn't like school either." Okay, so we can't say things like, "School didn't do anything for me. I was bullied." Well, even if you were bullied in school, we have ways to address that if your student is being bullied. Um, so we have to eradicate the perception or belief that school is negative. And again, it starts from the parents instilling those core beliefs into their students. So we have to encourage your child to make a connection with a trusted adult, a school, whether that's virtual or in person. Use positive language when discussing school, as I indicated. Create expectations that school is not optional. So I know for me, school attendance was not an option. I couldn't tell my mom that I didn't want to go to school today. That wasn't an option for me. So we have to set standards and expectations for our students. Um, Set small goals and use praise and preferred activities as rewards for achieving them. Okay. So again, set small goals so they can see where they can achieve, they can accomplish things, they can have a positive sense of self based on the accomplishments that they're acquiring from the small goals that they set. It shouldn't be anything too grandiose, or it may be overwhelming. So we have to use praise. We have to validate their feelings, and talk to our kids about what they're going through. You know, and if you need help, most of all, we are here. Again, school is about academics, but it's also about social, emotional, mental health. Within the Duval County Public School System, we have a full service schools program. We also have a myriad of social workers that can provide support to um, academic needs, our social workers work with a multidisciplinary team to ensure that students who are having academic concerns will be placed again in the best position to learn and grow. Again, they may need an IEP, they may need accommodations, whatever the case may be, but we're here to help. We're here to help. Our district has resources that may be able to assist your student overcome these barriers to education. Contact your school, your child's school counselor or school social worker if you need help locating these resources. All right. So, what does a solution look like for your student? Um, so, oftentimes, school attendance really comes down to our students having a sense of independence, our students recognizing the importance of their own education and doing what they need to do to get to school. And we're going to help them as parents, guardians, caregivers. We're going to help them along the way. So let's say the answer to this problem lies at the top of a mountain. To get to it, there are many steps along the way. Try to identify your goal for your child and the steps your child and or family will need to take to get there. At the bottom of this pyramid is simply purchasing an alarm clock. To me, that means that we are waking up on time, okay? Or even wake up 20 minutes early um, to get ourselves prepared for school. So if you need an alarm clock, you can. Most students or a number of students have cell phones. They can put it on their cell phone to wake them up every morning. This is a big one. I think Ms. Hill mentioned this earlier. We have to get to the bus stop at least 5 minutes before the bus arrives. That way we know we'll get on the bus on time so we can get to school. Our overall goal is to have 5 or fewer absences in school. Okay, so that's our goal. So I want you guys to take this chart, this diagram, this hierarchy, and put in it whatever you need, whatever it takes for success to be accomplished or achieved. You can use this pyramid, put at the bottom, whatever it is that is most significant, all the way up to the top to where we can reach our goal of 5 or fewer days absent in school. So what might happen if a student misses too much school? Okay, there are a number of things that can happen. I will tell you, uh, research has showed a number of poor outcomes for students who are chronically absent in school. So of course, failing grades, repeating classes, or in the entire grade. For the older students, if they're not in school, their driver's license could be suspended or revoked. Referrals to the district hearing office with community and state agencies that can lead to state attorneys prosecution of the case. So for parents who can get their students to school on a every day, this is why we want to get them in school. We don't want to have to face any of these outcomes. Um, so it's of utmost importance that our kids are in school. And again, I wish we had more parents uh, in on this presentation, but there there's detrimental outcomes for our kids, our students not being in school on a regular basis. Um, so what is regular attendance? Satisfactory attendance is defined as 9 or fewer absences per school year. This includes excused and unexcused absences. Okay, so again, 9 or fewer absences, which includes excused and unexcused absences. How can we facilitate um, positive communication between home and school? We have to first make sure that all of our information is updated. So again, going back to the blue card, updating your information in your student's blue card, um, and also providing written documentation notes from the doctor if your student is going to have to go to the doctor. So if they're absent 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3 days where the parent can actually indicate that my child was sick if they stayed home for 3 days. But if it's outside of 3 days, if it's 3 or more, if it's 4 days, you actually to have a doctor's note uh, indicating that your child had an illness that was caused extenuating circumstances for him to be out for 4 or more days. So students returning from absences shall be required again to present written explanations from their parents. That's 3 days. If it's 4 days, it has to be a doctor's note. Illness or injury of the student can often prevent them from being in school. Serious illness or death in the student's family. I want to say something about that real quick. Again, we have mental health professionals that can address grief and grieving for students who have experienced the death of a loved one through the full service schools program. Um, Also, inclement weather could be a barrier for some, but I'm gonna get back to that because inclement weather should not always be a barrier. Official religious holidays of a religious sect or for religious instruction. So here again, we're going to talk about the insurmountable conditions as determined by the school principal or other designated district or school personnel. And I'm going to also include inclement weather in that because if there is some type of, say, a hurricane, the school will let communicate. They'll send out an all call to parents, letting you all know that there is going to be inclement weather and school is not going to be in session. Another barrier, a bus failure or irregular schedule, which causes the absences or tardies of students who are eligible for and regularly transported by the district. So if something goes on with the bus, then of course they're going to be um, late or tardy for school. Attendance, set your child up for success. Um, what is good school attendance? Good school attendance means, again, starting as early as possible. Preschoolers, they build skills and develop good habits for showing up on time. Um, this is building a culture of learning, not just learning academically, but immersing them in a set of rituals and routines that will carry them throughout life. So the earlier we can do that, the better. So from preschool to elementary age, they will be ready by the end of the third grade. So the skills that they develop from preschool to second to third grade, they will be ready to move on to middle. They should have those school skills ready to move on when they reach middle and high school. If they stay on track, they'll graduate, move on to college, and be a productive person in society. Okay. Now, all of that can be, it could be harder if students miss too many days, have too many absences. Um, it could be much more of a burden for students to reach this pinnacle of success if they have chronic absenteeism. I just got your chat, Miss Hill. Let's see, what happens if your child misses the 4 days? Excuse me, misses the 4 days, has a doctor's note. Will they be counted excused for the 4 days, or just the day they return? They should be excused for all 4 days. If your doctor presents on that note that it was an illness that kept them out of school for 4 or more days, all 4 of those days should be excused. And I also say this as well: if your child, unfortunately, and God forbid, if they do have an illness that is severe, don't hesitate to contact hospital homebound. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't know, how they're operating, but hospital homebound is a resource through the school district, Duval County schools, that will provide instruction to students who are severely experiencing a severe illness or injury that keeps them out of school. So where can you learn more about attendance? Um, you can always go to your school and inquire. But here are some attendance resources: attendanceworks.org, DCPS attendance policy, U.S. Department of Education. And so we have plenty of resources that will outline the significance and importance of attendance. And I think that's about it. Did you guys have any questions, or was there anything you wanted to add? Any comments or anything of that nature? If the absences were due to COVID being found in the classroom, is the negative test the same as the doctor? So that's a good question. typically, and I don't want to misspeak here, but typically what has to happen is thank you, Miss Lee, for the for typically what has to happen is the school, if your student is showing COVID symptoms, they'll be required to quarantine, which means they have to be out of school. And yes, the doctor they'll have to have I believe they have to go through the protocol of being cleared or having a negative test, and then yes, they will have to have a doctor's note to indicate that they can return to school, if I'm not mistaken. But they'll have to have that negative. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Miss Lee. That negative test in order to return to school and not be symptomatic. But yep, that's a good question. And again, we're in this pandemic. It's things are really kind of crazy. So I commend all of our parents who are getting their students to school on a regular basis. And I just appreciate you guys and thanks for caring and being here and spending this time with me. So if there's no more questions, I think that's about it.
I do want to add just one thing for Miss Hill. If you have questions about the COVID protocols, if your student has to quarantine, on our YouTube channel, we did a presentation a few weeks ago with Elizabeth Trizotto, who's the district Department of Health person for Duval County Public Schools, and she goes over all the protocols and what the different scenarios are.
Well, I guess that's it. If there's no more,
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We appreciate your time and being here with us.
thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. Stay safe, everybody. Good night.